This is the Zoom Platform Podcast.
Everybody, welcome to the first ever Zoom Platform Podcast. I'm Jordan Freeman. I'm joined by Cameron Stark and Max Petrosky. Say hello, guys.
Hello, hello.
Greetings and salutations.
So to give you a little background on us, you probably already know who I am if you're a Zoom Platform customer. I'm CEO, Chief Executive Officer, and Chief Creative Officer here at Zoom. We normally have remastered games in the past, but we're starting to move into original content. So there's a little info on me and the company. Guys, why don't you tell a little about yourselves?
Max, you go ahead and go first.
Okay, sure. Well, my name is Max, and I've been working with Jordan for the past several years on several projects, including the MegaRace reboot. I myself am a huge fan of MegaRace, and that's actually how I met up with Jordan. And I love the music. I love pretty much every aspect of the game. It was my very first video game growing up, and so it was really quite an honor to be working on the reboot of the series, and so that's really awesome. I'm also currently working on some stuff right now in terms of modifications for the game, like custom music and assets like that. And right now, I'm that's pretty much it for the time being.
All right, I'm Cameron, known on the internet as Technobabbler and also the Retro Gamer. I've been running a blog called the Retro Gamer for about seven years now, and do like videos and articles about old games and also newer games more recently. Also a huge MegaRace fan. I also had it as a kid, played it a lot. And yeah, that's all I can think of right now.
Cool. Well, that's kind of it's a great segue into our first topic. You know, what are the first games we ever played? You know, and kind of go from there. And I think we all hit on one. The first game I ever played was MegaRace. I'm not sure about you guys, but I first played it on my family's Packard Bell computer with Windows 3.1 and DOS. That's how I was first introduced to Lance Boyle, and also the Knowledge Adventure 3D Dinosaur, 3D Body Adventure, Undersea Adventure. A lot of great titles on that. And that was kind of my first entry into computer games and video games. That was it, the Packard Bell for me. How about you guys?
Yeah, my first gaming experiences were on the Nintendo, the original Nintendo. It was before my time, but it was sort of passed down to me. But my first console that was really my own was the original PlayStation, because I remember being in Blockbuster, and I was like probably 4 or 5, and they had Twisted Metal on the PlayStation in Blockbuster, and I remember playing that game, and I did not want to leave the store, and my parents just thought that was really cool that I was so interested in this, and so they bought me a PlayStation for Christmas or birthday or something with Twisted Metal, and that was my entry into video games pretty much.
Very cool. How about you, Max?
Well, likewise, with Jordan's, I had a Packard Bell computer growing up with Windows 3.1 and DOS, and it was a very expensive investment on my parents' part, and it had the CD drive, and it was the multimedia computer, so it was a fairly state of the art when it came out. But we used it as a family computer, and it very quickly we very quickly used up the hard drive, and it needed more RAM and stuff. So we would play MegaRace, but I don't know what would happen exactly. Either the screensaver would kick in, or maybe it was just a RAM problem or something. But when you would get to the later levels, the game would crash, and the ad-lib sound card on the computer, the OPL chip on there, will since the game just unexpectedly crashed, it doesn't know what to do, so it just currently takes the note it was playing at the time and suspend that note, and so you'll just have this horrific sound of suspended music notes just screeching through the speakers. It scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. So you'd be playing MegaRace, and all of a sudden
it's funny you mentioned that. I think that happened to my dad and I a few times. When the way I first found out, apparently I was into computers, is my dad tells me this story. He had the Packard Bell for work mainly, and he would play MegaRace on downtime. And I think I was 3 or something, and he said to me, "Hey, you want to play?" And so he was trying to show me. And the story goes, I just went, "No, Dad, I don't need you to show me. I know how to do it." And I just started playing, And man, that game was so fun. He would play with the mouse, and see. Older now, I like the keyboard. I just prefer that when I play. But apparently, my dad liked the mouse, and so did I. And just click, 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 and play those. As I said, the knowledge adventure games. But I'm sure you guys also played like Ski, going down the hill and having that monster get Minesweeper, all that good stuff.
The knowledge adventure games are hilarious because, and I was showing my friends at work the 3D Dinosaur Adventure.
I gotta look this up, 3D Dinosaur Adventure. Oh,
dude, it's hilarious because the one game where you have to it's name all the dinosaurs or capture all the dinosaurs. I'm pretty sure it's name the dinosaurs. Anyway, if you fail, it's in a very Doom-like engine, and if you fail, the game locks you up in a four-sided skybox room where a nuclear explosion is supposed to represent the asteroid hitting the Earth, and the narrator just goes, "Ah! Oh my God, we're gonna die!" It's like he's screaming off the top of his lungs, and it's very traumatizing when you're a kid. But it's
you feel horrible. And the one that I remember that scared the crap out of me was in 3D Body Adventure. You're supposed to do these emergency surgeries, and there's this kid who I think has rabies, and I didn't move quick enough, and they're like, "We're sorry, you lost the patient." And I just remember feeling, oh God, oh no. Is there any way I could save him? I mean, those are pretty scary and realistic for kids games, and but yeah, boy, were they fun to play.
Exactly, yeah. No, it's looking back at them now, they're really, it's really quite tongue in cheek and funny. But when you're a kid, you're like, oh my God, this is freaky, man.
It's intense.
Yeah, very much so.
What happened was when we did our platform, that was actually one of the first groups I reached out to, Jumpstart, which actually acquired Knowledge Adventure, and we were actually able to get the rights to the games to remaster them. No one else had done them yet. It was weird that they had done Humongous Entertainment, but they hadn't done the Knowledge Adventure games yet. So we got those, and they're available on our site exclusively, the DRM free conversions. And one of the things that we noticed about it was when we did the masters were the Packard Bell versions were a lot different than the regular PC versions, namely the music. I think it was to show off the Packard Bell multimedia functionality, using the CDs to load CD quality music.
And also you get the bonus features too, so that's a nice benefit as well.
Yeah, we scanned all the manuals, especially with 3D Dinosaur Adventure. There were multiple versions. We've got a lot of cool stuff that come with the games.
What are some other problems you guys used to run into with games? Like Max mentioned, like the screeching, when MegaRace would crash and everything like that.
MegaRace in general is a pretty, I don't want to say it's a buggy game, because it isn't. I think it's just it has idiosyncrasies that make it a little bit more difficult to emulate the other games, because there's the video the way the game refreshes the video is very interesting because with the when I found this program that was able to capture the video from the game, and you could tell the rendered video from the actual game files play so much better than in game, because in game you have screen tearing and things, distortions of that nature, and I think that's because it's the nature of the beast of it's a DOS game running off of the PIT timer and stuff like that. So or it's going with the you have like a 12.5 frames going up against a 70 hertz refresh monitor rate, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of idiosyncrasies in that. But to me, one of the buggiest games I ever played was a game called Midtown Madness 2. And that was the very first game I did mod work with. And boy, it was really easy to replace assets in the game because the compressed files for the game were basically just renamed zip files. So it was super easy to put in custom content. And what I did was, for the pedestrians, I replaced all these sounds of the pedestrian screams and stuff with like these minute-long audio clips from from various TV shows and stuff. And my computer was like, a quarter of a frame a second. It was it slowed down so badly. It was I broke that game so many times.
And I loved Midtown Madness. I think there were 3 games, if I remember right. Wasn't that what would become Rockstar San Diego?
Yes, that is correct. Angel Studios, which ironically enough also did special effects work for the weird movie, the Lawnmower Man. They eventually became Rockstar San Diego. And they did Midtown Madness, which is a really good game, still a pretty good game. Midtown Madness 2, which is good. Midtown Madness 3 is actually done by DICE.
Right.
And that was her Xbox exclusive. And that game's okay. It's radically different from the other games, but it's pretty much just like a spiritual successor, pretty much.
I gotcha. And, what was interesting, too, you mentioned the Lawnmower Man. One of the first console games I ever played was GoldenEye. Pierce Brosnan's in the Lawnmower Man.
Exactly.
And made me think of GoldenEye. Now, there's another classic game. That was, I think, one of the first console games I ever played. I played it at my friend's house. Initially, growing up, my family and I, we were all very PC-centric, let's say. And my parents were like, oh, you don't need a game console, play on the PC. And I would play the Humongous Entertainment games, play the Jane's combat simulations. You guys remember those? Like World War II Fighters, USAF?
Wait, on PC?
Uh-huh, yeah.
No, I don't remember those.
Oh, those were fantastic flight simulators, and they were just incredible. Simulators. Anyway, though, as much as I loved those games, I was always thinking about consoles. But regardless, the Jane's Combat Simulations, the Microsoft Golf games. I'm sure you guys remember those.
Oh
yeah.
Let's think. Age of Empires, Age of Empires 2, along with the Conqueror's expansion. There were some great games on PC, but all my buddies were like playing the consoles. So eventually, Game Boy Color. That was one of the first non-PC games I played. Super Mario Brothers Deluxe, which was just the regular game with some new levels, and then
I remember that.
That was so great. You guys obviously played Pokemon Blue and Red, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, Pokemon Blue was my first Game Boy Color game.
I'm actually in the minority. I've actually never really played a Pokemon game. I never really got in.
Really?
Yeah, I'm really weird in that regard. I played Pokemon Pinball.
I remember that with the battery in the pack. I remember you had to do that.
Yeah. But my brothers were a lot more into Pokemon growing up and stuff. So they're a lot more well versed in the Pokemon games than I am.
Well, I loved on N64 the stadium games, not because I was so into Pokemon to have them battle, but the mini games, they were as good as Mario Party, like especially the first one.
Yeah, I was recently at an event where they had an N64 set up with the Pokemon Stadium games, and like all we did was play the mini games in multiplayer. It was a blast.
Those were so fun. Yeah. What was your favorite?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is the Lickitung one, where you're getting the sushi and stuff.
The sushi?
And, yeah. I don't know that it was my favorite, but that's just the one I remember the most.
I got you. I remember that one, and I loved the where you had to do the rat running on the little treadmill, the snakes to capture the little haikuns.
Oh yeah, and there was like a racing one where Diglett would come up out of the ground or something, and you had to like jump over him or something like that. I remember.
Oh yeah, I think that's the one with the snakes. You had to catch them like they're like throw the hoops around them. As they pop out of the ground.
That's right. Yeah.
But we were talking about PC games, though, too, not to jump around. But I'm surprised you guys didn't play those Jane's Combat Simulations games. They were so realistic and very hard to get into in terms of, like, as a kid, like, I didn't understand half of it. But you could essentially put it in a mode where you're already flying, because taking off and landing, I couldn't figure that out. But once you're already in the air, especially with World War II fighters, that was my favorite one. Second would be USAF. You can just set up these maps where you just, you're in the middle of it. You got a bunch of, what were they? FW-109s, ME-262s, I think BF-109. I just remember the names. I don't remember them exactly, like the Messerschmitt thing. But regardless, they'd fly around. You'd take them out, and you'd have you could take a view from the camera from behind the plane as opposed to the cockpit, and I would just play that for hours and hours. And then I was so glad I played those because over time I would find other games like the Commandos franchise. You guys remember those? The real-time tactics games?
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Oh, those were a blast. And thanks to that, I discovered some of my other favorite franchises, because Commandos was made by IDOS, and they had this demo disc, and I found Hitman through that, Tomb Raider, Thief, Deus Ex, Legacy of Kain. I couldn't like IDOS was my favorite publisher growing up. Once I figured out all the great franchises that came from them, it was just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm looking at some gameplay of Jane's Combat Simulations. That does look familiar. The game does. I don't remember the title, but the gameplay looks familiar. I remember playing there was like a short period of time when I was younger that I was like obsessed with flight simulators, and I remember playing I think it was Flight Simulator 97 or 2000 or like somewhere around there. I remember playing that, just like I like to fly the planes around.
Oh yeah, they're such fun. Just like you said, just flying around. Because back then, I mean, it was when 3D first came. It's like playing Super Mario 64 for the first time. That was actually, I had played GoldenEye at a friend's house, but the first time I really got to sit down myself and play a 3D game, it was Mario 64, and that I didn't get an N64 till 1999. So all that time waiting, but to play like a 3D console game, that Mario 64 just blew my mind as a kid. I couldn't believe how much freedom you had.
I don't remember my first N64 experience. Well, the first memory I have of the N64 was I was at a friend's house and they were playing GoldenEye, and I remember that iconic HUD popping up whenever he got shot and stuff. And that was I was brand new to video games at the time, so that was like, what's that popping up on the screen? So I remember I have a distinct visual memory of that. Being my first N64 memory, but I really enjoyed Beetle Adventure Racing on N64. That's a really good, underrated racer, in my opinion. It's definitely, if you haven't tried it, definitely play it. It's a really fun racer, very arcadey. It was originally going to be a Need for Speed game, and
really,
yeah. And they found out there's a magazine clipping where they mentioned that EA was going to be publishing a Need for Speed game, and if you punch in the Game Shark code our action replay code, there is a debug menu inside Beetle Adventure Racing, and it has all these references. The very debug menu itself says Need for Speed on it. So it's
very cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool references to that, and so it's built on top of the Need for Speed architecture, if you will. So it's already a great racer to begin with, but you also have the ability to crash through these boxes that are scattered throughout the map that get you points and get you access to multiplayer maps and bonus multiplayer maps and bonus cars and stuff like that. And so yeah, it's a pretty cool game.
It's interesting. I guess you could say Beetle Adventure Racing is the only Need for Speed game on N64.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
Good point. Speaking of underrated racing games on the Nintendo 64, growing up, this was, and I think it still is to this day, one of my all-time favorite racing games. It definitely is. San Francisco Rush 2049 with the race mode, the stunt mode, and my favorite, the battle mode.
Yeah.
That was just such a blast. I don't know how many hours I've logged into that. I mean, I still to this day on my Dreamcast or N64 or Rush 2049 or on Xbox with the Midway Arcade Treasures 3. That game is so much fun. You really do get 3 games in one with the race, stunt, and battle mode. It's just that's definitely one. I couldn't believe I was reading in this book about the N64 that at least on N64 it only moved 200,000 units, which just blew my mind because,
really,
like I said, that's one of the best ones of all time. It really is.
Yeah, I remember playing it with my brother, and the physics in that game are just insane. You go into that stunk track area, and you'll just hit a ramp just right, and you'll be flying for like half a mile. It's you could get some pretty crazy air in that game. But the gameplay mechanics in it are pretty good as well.
Yeah, the whole idea of wings, it was so arcadey, and that's what I loved about it. And the weapons were perfect. I mean, you were mentioning Twisted Metal earlier. In my humble opinion, I felt like the battle mode at Rush perfected that arena battle that you'd get in Twisted Metal or Mario Kart 64 in the battle mode. Like, this to me was like the perfect formula in terms of getting that mode right.
Huh. Yeah, I don't remember the I remember playing Rush on N64, but what I remember more was the arcade at Chuck E. Cheese. That bright green San Francisco Rush arcade machine. Maybe it wasn't called. It was just Rush 2049 or whatever. I remember the graphics were better on the arcade, and I remember when I first played it, my arms weren't strong enough to because I was too little at the time, and the wheel had force feedback, and so it was like fighting you when you tried to turn the car. And I remember I wasn't strong enough. I couldn't steer the car. And then as I got older, my arms got stronger, and I was able to drive more. And I remember really enjoying it when I was actually able to play it.
That must have been one of the first ones with force feedback. That I didn't even know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was really well done too, because once you were in the air, then you'd lose the force feedback, so the wheel would just spin, and then you'd land on the ground, and the wheel would shake.
Well, keeping on the racing game tangent here. If you don't mind, I'm going to throw in a few other titles. Let me know what you guys think of these. Let's start off with Burnout 3 Takedown.
Oh, I love that game.
Yeah,
man, was that incredible. What's so, sad to me in some ways is Acclaim. They were just hemorrhaging money, and if Burnout 3 Takedown had come out, I think, just a few months prior, it might have saved them. But that one, I think it literally in 3 or 4 months had to be switched because it was sold off to EA, and then EA put it out. But I have a feeling if Acclaim had put it out, maybe that would have kept them going at least a little longer, because that game was just perfect. I love Revenge too. Burnout Revenge is great too. Paradise has its moments, but Takedown to me is the pinnacle of the series. And this is coming from someone, by the way, who on the GameCube and Xbox played the first two. I played Burnout, the original on GameCube when it first came out, loved it. Burnout 2, I made sure to get on the Xbox later. I actually played it after Takedown because they had this director's cut for Point of Impact. But Takedown was just amazing. I played it on... Because, see, like, I got the PS2 and the Xbox late. See, I started off with the GameCube. And I know, Max, you're a GameCube guy, too. And I love that thing, you know. And everybody's now talking about, oh, you know, the GameCube was so underappreciated at its time. Yeah, no, not by me. You know, I love that thing. But, you know, later PS2 and Xbox, you know, that was the only place you could find Takedown. And, yeah, that was just such a fun game.
Yeah, I remember playing the first Burnout, and it was like, this is okay. And then the second one, they improved on it. And then the third one, I was just blown away. I played that way more than the first two, and I loved that game.
Oh, it was like Demolition Racer on the Dreamcast, but again, it's one of those things where they just perfected the formula. And it was just perfect. Because Demolition Racer had kind of a similar concept to knock the cars around, but this just... I mean, it brought it down to a science, and Burnout Takedown was just unbelievable. And what's interesting, too, is just a few years later, on both... They had a version on Xbox 360 and essentially the same game on PS3, Full Auto and Full Auto 2 Battlelines by Sega. Do you guys remember that one?
Yeah, I do recall those. I don't...
Yeah, those were a blast.
I don't remember playing them, but I remember wanting to play them. I'll look it up now.
Yeah, I think they were initially pushed as, you know, kind of a way to show off the graphics and the horsepower of the new consoles, but they're actually a lot of fun to play.
Huh. Yeah, I do remember this cover very distinctly. I think I did actually maybe rent this game, or at least I played a demo
which
or
version?
something.
The 360 or the PS3 one?
360.
360. Okay, cool.
Yeah, this was early days of 360. Yeah.
Yeah, going back to just really quick, Burnout 2. That was the one I remember the most, and it was on GameCube, and I just remember the music in that just being really, really good. I think Burnout is one of the few franchises where the games have just gotten progressively better and better and better. At least like the first, 3 or 4. Whereas like the first one was like, okay, this is pretty good. Second one's like, okay, this is a lot better. Third one's like, whoa, So I think a lot, it's a shame more games don't have that nice progressive,
a positive trajectory.
Exactly.
Yeah. I do know that it's kind of the popular opinion that the fourth Burnout was a little bit of a hiccup in the series, but then it picked up after that.
Yeah, Revenge, it's an odd one, It
was sort of more of the same from 3, I think. And I think
exactly.
people kind of are like, eh.
Well, the other thing that it changed, though, which a lot of people didn't like, myself included, is that when you hit traffic going the same way as you, that didn't count as a crash. In Burnout 3 Takedown, you were encouraged to go in the oncoming lane because, you were going to get in a crash either way, whether you hit a car going the same direction as you or, hit something in the oncoming lane. In Revenge, I believe if you hit the cars going in front of you, they just fly out of the way. So there was no real reason to go into the oncoming lane to get those points if you didn't want to mess up somehow. It just, it kind of changed the way the game worked. And I think a lot of people preferred, the harder aspects of Takedown. It was more hardcore, so to speak.
Yeah. Did you guys ever play the this was on PlayStation, but the driver games?
Oh, I remember those. I didn't play them too much, but
yeah. Well, actually, the first driver was also on PC.
No, I didn't know that.
I think the third one. Yeah, the third one was also on PC. The third one was not as well received, but those were good driving games.
What were your experiences with that game? Because I remember it vaguely, but you probably know it better than me. Could you tell a little more about it?
The original Driver games, the first 2 on PlayStation were some of my favorite games on PlayStation for a little while. They had really good storyline. It was, I mean, it did Grand Theft Auto before Grand Theft Auto, and it wasn't about stealing cars and beating up people. It was more about the driving, and yeah, the driving was just, it felt really good for the time, for a PlayStation game, for an arcade driving game. It was really good. It was fun running from the cops and driving around the open world cities, and which were pretty impressive for the time for PlayStation. And then I still enjoyed Driver 3. A lot of people didn't like it because it was really buggy, but I still enjoyed it. And then after that, the series kind of fell apart. But the developer also did Stuntman for PS2, which is like one of the hardest games of all time.
I remember that.
yeah, like some of the later missions just got insane. Like you would just fail the mission for like the tiniest little mistake. And Driver 3, which came out after Stuntman, inherited some of that difficulty. I still have not, to this day, I still haven't beat Driver 3 because there's one mission that I must have tried a couple hundred times, and I still haven't beaten it. You're supposed to tail this guy, and if you get too far, you immediately fail the mission. And that part alone was tough because you have to like drive in oncoming traffic and make like these tight corners and stuff. It's one of the final missions in the game. And even after you get through that, I think I beat that part once out of like the hundreds of times that I tried it. Even after you beat that part, then you go into like an on-foot shootout section, and if you die there, you go all the way back to the beginning. And I think I got through the chase part once, and then I immediately died in the shootout. And then I had to go all the way back to the beginning, and I just finally gave up. But yeah, that was years ago.
Just trying to think of some other good racing games. Did you guys ever play the SpyHunter remake?
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
And that was also on all the consoles at the time, right?
Yeah,
it was on GameCube, Xbox, PS2.
That was
exactly,
that was a good game. I actually just played that recently the other day, and it's aged a bit, but it's still pretty fun to play.
Yeah, it was fun.
And
so good.
They had
too.
some sequels. Yeah, but I loved the first one because I know they had some sequels that were just on Xbox and PS2. There was 2, and then Nowhere to Run with The Rock. But in my opinion, the original remake was the best because the other ones got a little too weird.
Yeah, I don't think I really heard anything good about the other ones.
Yeah, I always wanted to get the second one. I never got a chance. But yeah, the first one is again, it's dated a bit, but it's still pretty enjoyable, and I like the soundtrack. The soundtrack is for the most part pretty good. There's a couple tracks there where it gets a little bit too synth heavy. Like there should have been more recorded guitar, but you could tell it's just keyboard guitar samples and whatnot. But it's still the rest of it still holds up pretty well.
Yeah. Well, Max, since you're a music guy, what's besides MegaRace? What's your favorite music, or what's some of your favorite music? What names like some games that have some of your favorite music?
Geez. Well, MegaRace is to me very very close and near and dear to my heart. And anything Stephane Picq wrote. He's a really good musician and very underrated in it.
Fantastic.
And excuse me. And it's a shame that he doesn't write as much music as he does today. But the Dune soundtrack is really good. A lot of the stuff that he did for Commander Blood has some really good beats. But for other games, I really love Kenji Yamamoto stuff from Metroid Prime and Super Metroid. Oh boy, it's like trying to name your favorite child or something. You know, it's so.
Hey Max, can I get your thoughts on Jesper Kyd, who's done all the music for the Hitman games? What do you think of his work?
Oh man, I need to play the Hitman games. I'm such a horrible gamer. I haven't played the vast majority of games that most people have played. I'm more of a video game enthusiast, so I'd really need to hit up. I really need to hit up on the Hitman
I think
games.
you'd love his music. It's very, very atmospheric. He gets a whole orchestra involved. I mean, he really does a good job. Like Silent Assassin and Blood Money, those two soundtracks right there are just incredible, in my opinion.
Very cool. I'll definitely have to check it out. Some other games that have some really good soundtracks. Tron 2.0 by Nathan Grigg, who does a lot of. He's still with Monolith and doing the Fear games and stuff.
And No One Lives Forever. I think he did that as well. Those were great.
Yeah, he's been with Monolith since day one, I think. Oh boy, why am I blanking on this? This is driving me nuts. The Need for Speed series, Romty Prisco, the late great Sassy Cascas. He just recently passed away.
Oh really?
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so sad. He was like 40 something.
Oh man, that's too bad.
Yeah, really.
I didn't know that.
Really great guitarist. Well, his song Callista, which was written for Need for Speed 4, ended up getting used.
I love that song.
Yeah, it got used for Mass Effect, so he got a second life through that. So that's where most people know him through that. But that song's written like 10 years ago when I put it in Mass Effect.
Because I remember when I heard that song in Mass Effect 2. I was like, wait, this sounds really familiar. This sounds really familiar. I was like, this is like nostalgic familiar. What is this? I just looked it up and I was like, oh yeah, Need for Speed.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great stuff in the especially 2, 3, 4. Had the soundtracks are absolutely phenomenal. Again, Romty Prisco, Alistair Hurst, Crispin Hands, Matt Durgan, or I'm forgetting his name, but and the last game, Need for Speed game that had original music was Need for Speed 6. Some original music. They started doing the stupid licensing stuff that. I'm all for licensed music, but it was just such a weird juxtaposition in Need for Speed. What
was Need for Speed 6?
Hot Pursuit 2.
Oh.
Yeah, which the GameCube port.
That was a great one.
Yeah, if you didn't have the GameCube one port is so bizarre. It's a shadow of the PS2 port.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember playing the PS2 version, and then I played the GameCube version later, and I was like, "Whoa, this is."
They're
really
two
different
games. They're two completely different games.
Yeah.
And
because of the N64. I mean the N64. the GameCube is missing the two of the shoulder buttons,
right?
Or at least one of the shoulder buttons, and so you didn't have the same. You weren't able to use some of the powers that the PS2 version had.
Yeah, I think EA rushed that one out. It just, I guess you give the excuse of the GameCube is technically different to program because it's a PowerPC CPU. So essentially, you're writing a game for Macintosh pretty much because that's the same processor for the old school Macintoshes before they went to Intel.
And Xbox 360 as well.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's right.
Yeah, Xbox 360, they had that. And, it's just interesting how they've kind of changed. Obviously, they're getting closer and closer to PC, especially with the latest consoles. But it's interesting how they, and think about that too, right? A Macintosh architecture for a Microsoft game console.
Yeah, that's quite ironic when you think about it.
Yeah.
And something I forgot to mention earlier, it's amazing. You're talking about, the musicians and their careers. Well, designer Ed Logg, one of my favorites, he's a big guy at, or was at Midway. He did, I think, Dirt Bike, Super Breakout, the San Francisco Rush series, the home versions. That was all him, San Francisco Rush 2049.
Oh, didn't he do Asteroids?
Yeah, he did Asteroids,
Yeah.
Centipede, Millipede, the whole Gauntlet series, Wayne Gretzky. I mean, he did all that. I mean, he did so much for Midway. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that because obviously Rush 2049 and all those. I mean, that's quite a resume.
Yeah. It's funny because you mentioned Ed Logg, because a lot of these arcade guys are still in the business, ironically enough. It's but yeah, Ed Logg, working back before Atari bought out Midway bought out the arcade division of Atari Games. Atari Games was the arcade company. Anyway, splicing hairs here.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. No, but that's how they got the Rush series, because it was an Atari in the arcade. Cameron, you probably remember when you saw the machine, it had an Atari logo, but the home version was Midway.
But
I don't remember it, but I believe you.
Eugene Jarvis, another arcade great. He did Defender for Williams.
Defender. And
of course, that also got Williams also got absorbed by Midway, and he still does games. He does the Need for Speed, not Need for Speed. He does the Fast and Furious games for his company Raw Thrills. So if you see any of the new Fast and Furious games in the arcades, that's his stuff.
Oh, right, yeah.
I remember playing one of those in the arcade. That was actually pretty cool. I can't remember which one I played. I want to say Tokyo Drift in the arcade, but I honestly don't remember.
Yeah.
Not exactly a fan of the movie, so I just remember the game looked cool, though.
Well, they're very similar to Cruis'n World and Cruis'n USA, which, of course, is also his creation as well.
Cruis'n Exotica as well. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Those are good. My brother and I have an inside joke with the one song from Cruis'n World. It's just very to the bass line reminds us of like the Rugrats or something like that. It's just, it sounds so out of place. It cracks us up.
I remember Cruis'n World the most because they had, what was it, like 6 machines set up in a row at Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah, and that was like my even after I'd played the heck out of that game and I'd raced so many times, that would still be like my fallback game. Whenever I only had like a few tokens left, I'd be like, all right, yeah, let's just play some Cruis'n World.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, Cruis'n World, was great. And the funny thing about these arcade games and stuff is the way they advertise them. They have flyers and promotional material going like, oh, you can make so much money for your business and stuff. And there's a video, it's on YouTube, where they actually filmed like a little behind the scenes featurette about the Cruis'n World and stuff, and the revenues you can make off of the game. It's really funny, really tongue in cheek and funny. But you were gonna say something, Jordan?
Yeah, I was going to say, the games I remember at Chuck E. Cheese, you guys keep bringing that up, reminded me of, I love Time Crisis 2, the light gun game. I play that, what out of that there. And
I don't remember seeing that at Chuck E. Cheese. Well, I'm sure we were at a different Chuck E. Cheese, but
oh yeah,
the country.
Well, this was when I was living in Massachusetts, and it was kind of it was like weird because it sat between two towns, a nice town and kind of a rough area, and you kind of got a nice mix when you went in there. And so they had like Time Crisis 2. This had the Star Wars Trilogy game, which was very cool. They had a Neo Geo, and I played this game called Street Hoop that was, a lot of people say, a poor man's NBA Jam, but quite frankly, I like Street Hoop better. You had 3 people instead of 2, and it was a lot of fun, and that's how I first figured out what SNK and Neo Geo was, because unfortunately at the time, this is late 90s, no one would play that machine. I was the only one playing it, which was nice for me, but kind of not good for them, but or SNK, that is. But that was a lot of fun, and yeah, the Time Crisis games, House of the Dead 2. I loved in the arcades light gun games and racing.
Yeah.
Well, Cameron and
go ahead.
Cameron and I grew up in the same neighborhood, so we are really familiar with the arcades in the area. And so the Chuck E. Cheese that he was talking about is the same one I went to as a kid, and they had a good selection of games. They had the 6-player X-Men. Konami X-Men, Star Wars Trilogy.
They had some really big machines.
They
like,
did. They did.
What was it called? Something luge. The luge racing one, where you'd sit in the bucket and like steer the sticks. There was another really big racing one it had like a 70-inch TV or something.
Yeah.
It was like a surround set, and it was like 6 tokens or something.
Yeah.
It was like a super realistic racing game.
I remember that one. Yeah. Yeah. Was it?
I can't remember what it was called, but.
You guys ever play that Arctic Thunder arcade game where they actually blew the cold air on you? That was really cool.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
In Florida, that was much needed. That was there was a line for those games.
Yeah.
Go there in the summer. I'd like to go to one of those right now. It's been 120 degrees here the past few days.
I heard they had the ground of flights in Phoenix.
Yep.
Yeah, I heard
Sky
that too.
Harbor was no go.
Wow. That's crazy. Jeez.
Huh.
But yeah, and go on.
One of my other favorite arcades that it was sort of a shooter, but it wasn't a light gun shooter. It was like a sitting shooter, sort of like Jurassic Park, which was another favorite. But
oh yeah, The Lost World. I remember that one.
Yeah, but I liked Rail Chase 2. That's like one of my favorite. Like it was like a big machine. You would sit on it. It had the moving chair like Jurassic Park. And it just had like a really fun story. It was like this Indiana Jones guy, and like the entire story takes place in a minecart, but he goes like so many places. And then he has like this lady who's a sidekick, and you fight like pseudo Nazis and the final boss battle of the game was like one of the most memorable for me. It was like this big giant train, like this armored train that had all these weapons on it, and you had to shoot the weapons and stuff to destroy them. That was a fun game.
You know what's a really good light game? I don't know, Cameron, did you ever go to Alfonso's pizzeria?
No.
Okay.
Well, we've been there, but I don't. Well, yeah. What were you gonna say?
It was funny because Alfonso's in Tampa had 3 arcade games, and these Sicilian guys that owned the place had no idea how to operate them. So when they were on attract mode, they had the volume at like 11. It was full blast. You're trying to eat your pizza, and your teeth are falling out because the bass is so loud from the from the games. But you have they had a Tatio racing game. I think it's I always forget the name of it, but it's like Police HQ or something like that, or crime
Chase HQ,
or SCI or something. The one of the spiritual successors to it. Chase HQ. Then they had AeroFighters, also known as Sonic Wings 3, which had this insane drum and bass music to it. It was a shoot 'em up, and then finally Konami's Lethal Enforcers. And
I remember that one.
Yeah. I've been listening to the soundtrack lately at work, and it's a crazy over the top soundtrack with like the owner of the Lonely Heart horn stab samples and stuff. Very over top Japanese soundtrack, and but that was a fun game with the light gun and the digitized graphics, the sprites and stuff. With they got the actors as the sprites.
But you guys
just
remember,
like Area 51.
Exactly. Yeah.
You guys remember Police 911?
Is that the one where they first had the duck thing where you step on it?
Yeah, it had a camera. It would detect your movements, and like you could duck behind stuff.
Oh, that's right. Really cool. That's right. Yeah, they had that at Busch Gardens.
Huh.
Yeah.
I played it at GameWorks in Ybor.
Yeah, that's probably where it went after GameWorks.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, there used to be GameWorks in Ybor City, that's a suburb of Tampa, and GameWorks.
That was also a really good arcade.
It was, yeah. It was owned by Sega, so They had a bunch of Sega games. They had House of the Dead arcade, like
Virtua
7.
Cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, Virtua Cop, yeah, and Virtua Cop 2, those were great.
Yeah, I think at GameWorks they had Virtua Cop 3, which was I really enjoyed that.
You know, I have a buddy of mine that modded his Xbox to do like 128 megs of RAM, and he got Virtual Cop 3 running on an emulator on his original Xbox.
Wow.
It's really cool.
Wow.
That's
impressive.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, apparently all you needed to do, like the Xbox could handle it if it just had more RAM, so that's what he did, and it was just too cool. And, you know, it's funny, too, talking about on-rails shooters. I know we talked a little about GoldenEye earlier. Are you guys aware that that's what GoldenEye originally was supposed to be, a kind of a light gun on-rail shooter?
Huh.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that. Not only that, and then the coolest part was, I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I think it was Steve Ellis. Literally a month before they're about to ship out or something like that. He goes, he's been like developing this thing for fun. He goes, you know, I kind of came up with an idea for a multiplayer mode. Should we put that in? Yeah, what the heck? Like that wasn't planned at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember GoldenEye being like the multiplayer being like an afterthought.
Yeah.
I do know.
Yeah, I saw. Well, no, go ahead.
Oh yeah, just really quick. I do know they did try to do a GoldenEye 007 for Virtual Boy.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that would have been interesting.
Yeah, I got the article pulled up from on Unseen 64, and they actually got some screenshots. It wasn't going to be a first person shooter. It was going to be some sort of like action racing game, and it's kind of like, I guess, like sort of like SpyHunter, where you got the planes coming towards you, the helicopters coming towards you, and you're in a sedan, and you had to shoot down the planes and stuff. It was very, very radically different from what we know when we hear the word GoldenEye.
That sounds sort of like maybe what became 007 Racing on PlayStation.
Yeah.
By EA, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
You know, I always wanted them to have, because I love the GoldenEye. I love GoldenEye. That's my favorite Bond film, and it's also my favorite soundtrack, movie and game. But that Ladies First thing that Eric Serra does during the movie for that car chase in the very beginning, right after, you think Sean Bean's dead and everything. That music is so cool. I kept hoping they'd put that in the game somehow, but I don't think they did.
Yeah, after GoldenEye, were there any other good 007 games?
Well, I really liked Nightfire, and Everything or Nothing I thought was great too. Those were good.
Yeah, Nightfire. Yeah, I remember Nightfire.
Even Agent Under Fire was all right. Then they, after they did all that, there was GoldenEye Rogue Agent, which was odd. I mean, it was okay, but then the From Russia with Love, that was kind of them doing like Everything or Nothing again, the third-person view, and then they had Sean Connery, obviously, that time around. That was neat. To me, in my humble opinion, this may be nostalgia clouding my judgment, but I think once it went from EA to Activision, that's when it went downhill, because, I mean, none of those were that memorable. I mean, I like what was it? Might have been Legends had kind of a neat multiplayer mode, because I think they did it with the Call of Duty engine, well, not Call of Duty engine. I mean, it's literally Quake 3, if you can believe that. Call of Duty. What's interesting, I don't mean to go off topic here, but Medal of Honor Allied Assault, which is one of the greatest games of all time, was done by a group called 2015 Games, obviously before the year 2015, led by a guy I actually met, Tom Kaderka, and he had this team. They made. It was just a cinematic. It was just incredible. So after Allied Assault's success, they're negotiating to do another one, and the team just kind of left them. And they go, no, we want to do our own thing. So they formed their own team. They decided to call their company Infinity Ward and created Call of Duty, if you can believe that.
Wow.
Huh.
I just always found that amazing.
Yeah, I did not know that story. Huh.
But anyway, one of the reasons why I bring it up is because both Medal of Honor Allied Assault and every Call of Duty game to this point are still running from 99 on that Quake 3 Arena engine. id Tech 3. It's just modified.
People rag on Bethesda for Gamebryo.
Yeah, no.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's funny when you think about it. That seems kind of true when it comes to processors that use the x86 or the x64 architecture, because that has been built up from the 70s. Like where the way the registers work and stuff is, it's essentially they just been continuously building on that as we went from 8-bit to 16-bit to 32-bit to 64-bit. So they still have to have that backwards compatibility. So technically the processors that we still run now still can go back to the 70s. That you could trace their roots back to the 70s.
The 16-bit even, with some of the old, I think some of the MS-DOS games, like they're hard to run when we convert them because they won't even run on 32-bit. They're technically 16-bit. It's crazy how far back some of this stuff goes. It's still computers and games. They're still a relatively young medium. That's what's so amazing about it. Yet look at how far it's progressed. It's fascinating.
Absolutely, and the fact that we already have people that are preserving old games and stuff like that. It just goes to show just how, like, in just 40, 50 years, how the technology has massively developed from leaps and bounds and whatnot.
Yeah, fast.
and we haven't lost too many people, thankfully, except. Obviously, there was the recent departure of Keith Robinson, the guy behind the whole Mattel and Television.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And before him, Ralph Baer, who I actually met and emailed a bit, who essentially is the father of the industry. And, he essentially created Pong before there was Pong. And he died, I think he was 95 or 96. I mean, he lived a long time. Yeah. But unfortunately, Keith died young. I think he was 61 or something. But from what I can remember, of course, there's Okawa from Sega. He died right after they discontinued the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
But I think other than those three, we haven't, I mean this obviously the right way, haven't lost too many. Oh, Satoru Iwata. Yeah, we lost him a few years ago.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Never mind. We have lost a few, but it's not like music or something or movies where you just have these long lists. The medium's still relatively young.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, and what's great is with the sometimes I get a little bit discouraged with how the fanboy mentality and how some of the fans are just like so. Invested into the video games, but at the same time it's that kind of mentality that's helping preserve the history of video games and the assets and the stories that help create the games that we know and love today.
Yeah. Very true, and I think the three of us can agree none of us were really partial to any company. I mean, I started off PC and played a lot of Nintendo products because that's tended to be what I gravitated towards, but I don't think any of us are fanboys or anything. We love a little bit of everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, you're cutting yourself off to so much more if you just perpetuate that stereotype of I'm just going to be a fanboy. I'm just going to like this one particular company and their products just because. That's that type of corporate segregation, if you will, is kind of unnecessary.
Yeah, it's like the whole Nintendo Sega thing. It's kind of like hair metal and grunge. It's all corporate created. This war, the dichotomy, between these warring factions, and really, it's music, it's video games.
Yeah.
But speaking of fanboys, I did a video on my YouTube channel where I took all these fan reactions to Metroid Prime 4 at the E3 at Nintendo's E3 Direct video, and I compiled them so they all played at the same time. And
Oh, I saw that. That was great with all the reactions. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I was really happy with how that came out, and
I'll admit I could have been used in that. I mean, that was I'm pretty psyched myself.
Oh no, yeah, I love the Metroid Prime series, and I'm definitely very stoked for it. And so yeah, I know I'm likewise. I will admit I definitely fall into that category too. But I was at work, so I was like very nice, you know. I was so,
very tempered.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't have the luxury of being able to sit in my gamer chair and fangasm, if you will. But but yeah, no.
Especially 1 and Echoes on the GameCube. Those were just fantastic games. I remember thinking, man, who knew that Metroid would be perfect as a first-person shooter?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are my 2 favorite out of the trilogy as well. It's just it's such a and when you read about the development history about Metroid Prime 2, it's really surprising. The game almost got canceled like 4 times. It was just really just happenstance, that luck and perseverance that made those games so good. It was originally the working title that Retro had. They were developing 4 games when Nintendo bought them, and Nintendo canceled all of them except this one game called Action Adventure. And they took Action Adventure and converted it into Metroid Prime. And there wasn't that many assets or just the game engine and stuff, essentially, but they took that and then converted that into the Metroid Prime game. But it was just for a while it was it was sort of like Resident Evil 4, where it was the over the shoulder camera point of view, and then it converted to a first person. And then Miyamoto had the idea of having the different visors to see different things. Of course, when he was talking about it, the translator's like, "Yeah, you could switch heads," and everyone's like, "Huh, what?" But
well, that just shows too how talented Retro Studios was. I mean, they were just a really talented group of guys.
Absolutely, yeah. No, and the art direction in those games are just absolutely beautiful. The assets they created for those games still stand a test of time. They still look just as fresh today. And I know they did provide some art direction, some assets for the latest game, Federation Force, and I hope that's going to be the same case with Metroid Prime 4. And it should be, I would think. I know it's going to be a new development team, but they have the same producer and stuff. And I know the majority of the people that did work on the Metroid games, Metroid Prime games, are no longer at Retro Studios. I think they're at Armature, that did Recore and stuff recently.
Oh, okay.
So Retro Studios it's not the same company that existed back in 2002. So I have confidence that Nintendo's going to make a good product, and it admittedly, Metroid Prime 3 it was still a good game, but it is the weakest of the 3. So hopefully, after a 10-year hiatus, they'll rebound quite nicely.
Yeah, hopefully they'll pull inspiration from the first game.
Yeah, I like the second game a lot too, because they did a lot of stuff that Metroid never done before, and to me it feels the most unique. And because I love the Luminoff, I think the alien race there in that game is really cool. And the idea of having the light and the dark, and have the light and dark worlds, and you have duplicate maps that you could switch back and forth to. That was a really cool gameplay mechanic. But in Metroid Prime, the first one, definitely feels like a tribute to like Super Metroid and what made those games great. And I love those 2 games. They're phenomenal. But for me, I kind of like Metroid Prime 2 just a hair more. because
Well, 2 had multiplayer as well.
it did.
That's the other
It
thing.
did, and it's a little. It's not the greatest multiplayer, but it is still multiplayer. So I'm definitely hoping they'll bring a really nice polished multiplayer for the Switch for Prime 4.
I got a question for you too. I really got into the Game Boy Advance games they brought out to kind of, help that Metroid ecosystem when the Prime games were on GameCube. Did you ever get into Metroid Zero Mission or Fusion on Game Boy Advance? Those are pretty cool too.
I really should, because I haven't. When it comes to 2D Metroid, I get kind of stuck. I'm on Super Metroid right now, and I always get stuck in the one jungle area. I think it's Green Brian Star or something, and I always get stuck in that one area, and I just need to figure out where to go next. And I cannot get very, very far in NES Metroid, that's for sure. But yeah,
notoriously hard game.
Yeah, that's
that's the whole series. I mean, well, Prime I like because it's a little easier to get around, but the 2D, always very, very difficult. A lot of backtracking, and you kind of, it's pretty convoluted figuring out where to go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And but I think the Super Metroid was definitely, they refined it and polished it up a bit, and I know I want to do Fusion because you could get the Fusion suit in Metroid Prime if you hook up your Game Boy Advance to the GameCube, and I know that's chronologically Fusion is the last game, in the timeline. So I believe it's Metroid Prime Trilogy, then Metroid Prime 2. Did Super Metroid then Metroid Prime 2? And then Metroid Fusion? I kind of forgot, but it's...
What about Other M? Did you like that?
I did not play Other M, but from my other friends that are hardcore Metroid fans, they really did not like it. And from what I
that's what I've heard, sort of the general consensus.
Yeah, they really, and you could tell from just looking at the cinematics, and they really made Samus, they really made her a damsel in distress, and they really they added way too much. It sounds weird, but they added way too much story and exposition that detracted from the gameplay, and it almost felt like you get a vibe that you're kind of like looking at an intergalactic soap opera almost, but
Remember me?
Next on Metroid.
yeah, exactly. And what's so ironic about that is that game was directed by Yoshiro Yakamoto. I think that's his name. He's essentially been with Metroid since the NES. He's practically considered the co-creator of Samus, and it's just amazing how he got it so wrong. And he wasn't a part of the Metroid Prime series, but he was. I think what he does best is 2D Metroid, and it looks like that's the case with the 3DS Metroid Samus Returns release coming up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I really enjoyed Hunters on the original DS. That was a good one too.
Yeah. I remember doing the multiplayer for that. Just being fascinated, like, wow, I'm online. Multiplayer.
Well, yeah, because it was the pack-in title with the original DS. That's what was cool about it. You get that demo cartridge, the Hunters. That's the first thing my brother and I played, because we eventually would get Ridge Racer DS, which was a ton of, it was Ridge Racer 64. That was great. A conversion of that, Mario 64. But the first thing we did were those, because of the demo chips, that multiplayer. Initially, I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be stupid with the stylus, but it really worked well. And, running around and shooting that way, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play the campaign. But let's be honest, it's sort of like Halo. Why that with that game? Do you really play the campaign, or you just go straight to multiplayer? But the multiplayer
Halo, no, the multiplayer on that
lost
what obviously it's like what took over for GoldenEye. I mean, once it.
Oh yeah,
really.
It was just.
Yeah, I'll countless hours on Halo PC. Jesus.
That was Gearbox too. They did a great job. They made some new maps. They added the Banshees. I didn't realize till I played, because I played the PC version first. The Xbox version, they didn't have the Banshees. Like on Blood Gulch, I'm going around, where are the Banshees?
Yeah.
No, that's only on the PC version.
Oh wow!
I mean, they really did a good job.
I did not know that. That's funny. Huh.
Yeah, and they cut,
Yeah, it didn't hit me till later.
They cut the they added in cut content too, right? Like, didn't they have the flamethrower too?
Yeah, they added in the flamethrower with the shark on it. That was cool.
Yeah.
They had all these new maps, and there were ways, if you had a modded Xbox, to get the newer maps onto the Xbox. Sometimes they'd need to be modified a bit, but yeah, they really did a great job, improving upon the game, and just because it was already a fantastic game, don't get me wrong, but they added so much more. I mean, like, you didn't think it could get better, but it did.
Yeah.
And I think they brought the original Half-Life to PS2, which was another great.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Great conversion, especially with the decay mode. I mean, Half-Life, that's one of my favorite games of all time, and that's not just because my grandfather was named Gordon Freeman. But, I really did think it was a great game.
Yeah, no, and actually, now that you bring it up, the PS2 Half-Life version was actually the first one I played before PC, and I mean,
same here.
It's hard to say because it was my first Half-Life experience, so I'm probably biased, but I having played through the entire PC version as well, I prefer the PS2 version. They improved the graphics. I like the weapon models better in the PS2 version. Because they completely changed those. Like, you have a Beretta as the pistol, for example, in the PS2 version, and then it's a Glock in the PC version. And then it's like an M16 in the PS2 version, and then it's like some weird-looking assault rifle that I don't even know what it is in the PC version. The weapon models in the PC version are just bizarre. But yeah, they did a lot of nice changes for the PS2 version.
Agreed. And I just, like I said, that decay mode, there was something about, like, if you got a disc from a magazine, which I eventually got on eBay for like $2, it added like a whole other campaign there too. It was really just, as you said, a more refined version. It's the one, if I ever play it again, I always play it on PS2.
Yeah, I remember playing the decay mode also, and I remember it being pretty short, and it was basically just a lot of it was a rehash of the single player, but still it was appreciated that there was a co-op mode for Half-Life, and that was really the only time Half-Life had co-op multiplayer.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I don't remember it ever appearing again, and maybe it's just me, and it's the nostalgia talking. I really enjoyed Half-Life 2, Episode 2, and Episode 3. I mean, those were all fantastic, but to me,
Half-Life
I mean, I think
2,
my favorite...
3.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that? I'm sorry. I meant 1 and 2.
I was like, is that an
my
intentional
fault.
joke? Or
No. My fault. I think I was counting, and I started thinking, like, it's the third one because it's, Half-Life 2, Episode 1, Episode 2. So
yeah,
little brain mess up there. But to me, the original, it will always be the best. I mean, what about you guys? I mean, that's my favorite.
Yeah, I actually just finished replaying Half-Life 2 and then playing Episode 1 and 2 for the first time. So yeah, it took me 10 years, but I finally saw the amazing, incredible, wonderful cliffhanger ending everyone loves so much. God.
Yeah.
It's painful.
It is.
If I remember right, though, I think Episode 2 is a lot longer than Episode 1, because I remember Episode 1 seemed pretty short, and then Episode 2, they at least fixed that.
Yeah. No, Episode 2 was great, gameplay-wise. Like, there was a lot of pretty interesting situations you had to get through, especially, like, the final... One of the final things, which was you had to protect the secret base from Strider attacks. You had to, like, race around and use the Magnuson devices to destroy them. That was pretty intense.
I just played Gary's mod. I was just like, I'm gonna spawn 8 million fast zombies. Oh dear Jesus, what's going on? Yeah, that was I think I was one of the many people that bought Half-Life just so I could get access to like Gary's mod and stuff like that. And
Team Fortress, all that good
Team
stuff.
Fortress 2 was great. I played the crap out of that back in the day. And that was really good. I actually met someone from we were on the same website, YTMND. He recognized my username. I'm like, are you from YTMND? I'm like, yeah, that's me. So it was funny. It's very, what are the chances of getting recognized on a server? But
did you ever play the expansions for the first one? Those are pretty good too, like Blue Shift, where you play as Barney.
I have them. I have Blue Shift and Opposing Force, but I've only played a little bit of Blue Shift. I've always wanted to play it. I just never got around to it.
Well, they're both good, Opposing Force and Blue Shift, and we're also forgetting the elephant in the room. I mean, it wasn't an expansion; it was a mod, but Counter-Strike.
Oh yeah, yeah. Counter-Strike was probably the first online game I played, and I have plenty of stories I can tell from that. I was probably, let's see, was I 14? No. Yeah, I was 14 when I got Counter-Strike. And Steam was brand new at the time, because I remember I had to activate, because I actually bought Half-Life on disc, because I remember Half-Life 2 was coming up and my computer couldn't run it, but I was like, I was like getting caught up in the Half-Life 2 hype, and so I went out and bought at Target. It was like a boxed copy of Half-Life with it came with Blue Shift, Opposing Force, Counter-Strike. No, it was Counter-Strike. It was a boxed copy of Counter-Strike, and it came with Half-Life and Blue Shift and Opposing Force. And I remember activating on Steam. Like the earliest versions of Steam, but unfortunately, not only did I have a slow computer, which could run Counter-Strike, but I also had dial-up, so I had really hilarious games of Counter-Strike on dial-up. I remember one particular moment that will forever be etched in my brain, of just running through this map and knowing there were people, but I couldn't find anybody for a while, and I went up to this hangar or something, or some kind of storage, like a garage, big garage or something, and this guy came running out, and he was and I could tell he was an enemy, and I started shooting at him, and I'm unloading my assault rifle on him, and he jumps and he's frozen in midair, and I'm shooting him, and I'm unloading bullets into him, there's blood coming out of him and everything, and he's just frozen there in midair, and so I stopped shooting. I'm looking at him, and then all of a sudden I'm just dead. Because I was dead 10 seconds ago, but
you just kept going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, around the same time when I played my first online game, what was yours, Max? Mine was Quake 3 Arena, and shortly after Unreal Tournament. We could probably debate which is the better of those sometime too. But what was yours, Max?
Oh, Halo PC. And
Halo PC.
Really?
Oh yeah, and that was my first online game. I was really late for the game scene because my mom and dad at the time were pretty much against video games and stuff. And the NES, which was my first console, was actually given to me by my uncle, to the chagrin of my parents. So, but I convinced my parents. This is past when they were cool with video games and stuff. But at the time, a friend of ours gave us a computer that could play Halo PC and stuff. And unfortunately, it had overheating problems. But and our router was, to give you an idea how long ago this was, it was an F. Like a 802.11f router, so it's really old.
Is that even before the B?
Yeah, I think it was actually. Yeah,
wow.
So this was before G, and Yeah, let me look it up. Actually,
Yeah, because all I remember was it going from B to G to N. But F must have come before even those.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember,
And then there was the dual band N and everything. But, wow. Yeah, F's going way
yeah. And it was, it was a really old router. And we would have constantly crashed it when there was just it was just too many packets for it or something. It would just, the router just constantly crashed every time we tried to play it. So I would play a little bit, and then either the computer would overheat or the router would die. And we just had to plug the router back in and stuff. So, but I had a lot of good times playing Halo. I remember one time I went on this Christian server, and I typed into the chat room, like, what the hell? And they got mad at me for saying hell. And they were like banning people that were saying ass and stuff, and I'm like, geez, they were very strict, but they're and of course there was people there that were auto aiming and stuff, and so it was that it wasn't horrible, but it was still pretty good.
Well, I'm glad Cameron brought up the flamethrower, because I'm remembering now how much of a blast it was using that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the flamethrower. I remember doing my favorite map was Derelict, which is that really small map with all the warps. The teleporter things, and I would play Oddball on Derelict. Was a lot of fun.
Nice.
And you would just there was grenades everywhere and stuff, so that ball would just be flying all over the place, and you just randomly catch it, and I'm like, okay, now it's essentially hide and seek, lethal hide and seek. So, that was a lot of fun. And I remember trying to do my own red versus blue machinima with that as well, and we had some convoluted setup. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have another copy of Halo running on another computer, and we capture it that way, and it was a whole.
You're gonna do a little Emerson, Lake, and Palmer handling both.
Yeah,
keyboards?
Exactly. It was a very convoluted setup, and it didn't work, obviously. But it was. I actually legitimately bought another copy of the game just so I could have it. I could host my own server and try to do a machinima. It was that didn't work out at all.
I remember we didn't record it or anything, but I remember my friend and I, just for each other's amusement, we did on the Xbox version in split screen, we did fake red versus blue episodes and stuff just for each other. That was fun.
Didn't Bungie they for Halo 2 they did the disarm thing, you hit the down D-pad or something and you drop your gun.
I don't think that didn't happen until 3.
Until 3?
Well, 3's when they added in the whole theater thing as well, where you could, what was it called? Forge or whatever, you could record everything and, build all that stuff. I think 2's where, probably, no, actually I think it was the first one. I was going to say the teabagging, but that's all I remembered from online.
Yeah, oh God. I'm triggered now.
Go to your safe space.
Still have war flashbacks now when I play Overwatch.
Oh, God.
That's a good one, too. That's Blizzard, right?
Yeah.
Overwatch
is a blast.
It's huge.
Especially with friends.
Yes, and it's right now it's really huge right now. I it's just amazing how massive the community is. Yeah. Easily dwarfs TF2 now, I guess.
Yeah.
But
especially because you have people into Overwatch who don't even own the game or have a way to play it. They might not have a console. They may not even be into video games, but they still get into the community because they love the characters and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's and there's a lot of female players too, I've noticed, which is something that's been sorely needed in the FPS gaming community. So more of that equality.
Yeah,
and so that's really nice to see more female gamers in that regard. And I love, and then some of the characters too are great too. I love Tracer. I'm always I lean heavily towards the Twitch class characters like Scout and TF2 and stuff. And Tracer is really a lot of fun, especially with the recall and blink abilities. Those are what's the new game mode that we were playing the other day, where they speed up the respawn times and stuff.
Total Mayhem.
Yeah, Total Mayhem with Tracer is absolutely so much fun to play.
Yeah, because you have like double health and faster cooldowns and stuff.
Yeah, well, you could recall in like 3 seconds instead of like 12. So it was you could it's and blink. You can blink so much faster. That is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But and the tanks are good too. I like Reinhardt and stuff. I can't really get into Diva. I don't know what is it about Diva. I can't seem to wrap my head around her gameplay mechanic.
Huh.
But
yeah, I'm always in those kinds of games. Any games that have any game that's like class based, I've found, and I actually discovered this through Overwatch, that I'm like, my specialty is typically tank. I just like being the guy that's big and strong and has a shit ton of health and just stands there. I don't know if I can say shit on here, but but stands there and just absorbs all the damage, pretty much.
Yeah, and by the way, feel free to say whatever you want. I mean, this is our thing, so yeah.
A crap ton of health. Just like edited in there.
No, it's the Christian server. You got ban you.
Yeah. How many rosaries should I
do? Oh man, but yeah, it's Overwatch is definitely like the thing right now in terms of gaming, in my opinion. It's just everyone that I see that considers himself a hardcore gamer or whatnot, that's definitely their bread and butter right now is Overwatch.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder if it would be as popular if it wasn't also on consoles, if it was just PC.
It's a good point.
My brother wouldn't be playing it if it wasn't on console. So yeah, it's that cross-platform definitely helps, and the fact that I don't care for it that much, but the superhero aspect of it helps, and also the progressive stance that Blizzard holds with in terms of gender and character diversification. I think is very attractive to a lot of gamers that want to be unique and stuff. So they're when they see someone with the similar features that they possess, it's like, whoa, okay, that's awesome. So something I can relate to.
Seeing something different.
Yeah, it's not like as much as I love stuff like Duke Nukem and whatnot. It's not that stereotypical guys balls out, this is only for guys sort of mentality. And you could thank Nintendo for that, because that was if you look at video games before the NES, they were unisexual. The games were equally both male and female oriented. Like Pong, there was very gender neutral. Pac-Man was made for female audiences in mind and stuff. But when the video game crash happened and Nintendo had to market the NES for the American markets and stuff, they couldn't market it the same way as the old video games, so they treated it as a toy, hence Rob the Robot. And what does the toy industry do? They very very stupidly, segregate the boys and the female markets. So the girls get all the pink frilly stuff and the boys get all the cool stuff. So that's why there's that mentality of the vast majority of gamers are male oriented, because Nintendo unfortunately had to market it that way.
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, it's just where the market took the industry. I mean, personally, I love Duke Nukem. I think it's kind of it's a throwback to those 80s action films. It's very tongue-in-cheek, and I think, you can get multiple, I don't want to say multiple, but you get what I mean. You can get a wide variety of audiences that take interest in, in different games, and, it doesn't necessarily have to be, what's the word I'm looking for here, geared towards men. It just, again, that's just kind of where the market took it. I think there's always been stuff around that's kind of works for both, like Mario Party.
Yeah.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I'm just thinking that, it wasn't just exclusive.
Well, I was in a Walmart today, and there was a couple I went over to the video game section because that's what I do, and there was a couple walking around, and they were looking for a Switch, and it was the girl that was, or a woman, I should say, that was like, I want the Switch, I'm willing to put down $300 for it and whatnot. And it's definitely, there's definitely been a lot of forward progression in terms of that. And not to say, again, Duke Nukem's hilarious because he emulates the whole, they live, I'm here to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of gum, sort of thing. And
he literally stole that.
Yeah.
He's not emulating; he literally stole it.
But and I think, and that's just the nature of the beast because of just how demographics work. But it's nice to see. Companies like Blizzard, they're at least willing to take the chance of, okay, let's try to break the mold a little bit, and not do it in a gimmick.
As long as it's not forced, that's the,
exactly.
You know what I mean? That's what's nice about it too, like the Switch,
exactly,
because it's not like they're explicitly doing.
Yeah, because that's the thing. That's the thing. Like that gives you the sour taste with the Wii and the Wii U, because it was Nintendo desperately trying to grab a huge audience, and that was by introducing gimmicky gameplay mechanics, and that attracted people that weren't gamers, such as grandparents and my mom, and and so it was the whole meant it captured the casual gamer market very well.
Well, especially the Wii. The Wii U was actually, in my opinion, I felt that was when they were trying to go back to more of the core audience. I mean, yes, there was still the gimmick of the tablet, but a lot of those games on Wii U, like Splatoon, are just, I mean, yes, they appeal to a wide audience, but they're just great games. I mean, that it's like the Dreamcast. It's very underappreciated.
No, absolutely. I do. The Splatoon is a fun game. I will admit, I'm really looking forward to Splatoon 2, because I will admit that after, and this applies to a lot of FPSs, but to me it started to get a little bit repetitive. Again, it could be the way I was playing it, or I didn't have all the weapons I needed or whatnot. Splatoon is definitely one of the best games on that console, and again.
I see what you're saying, though. But it's still, at the same time, it was nice to get a fresh original IP, as opposed to another sequel. But I know what you mean, where it got a bit repetitive. But hopefully they'll fix that in the sequel.
No, absolutely. No, and you're absolutely right. No, it was again very refreshing to see a new Nintendo IP, and it was from new people from Nintendo. These were the guys in Nintendo that grew up with Call of Duty and FPS games and stuff. So. What it was very, very refreshing to see, new blood at Nintendo creating content like that, rather than something Miyamoto had in the back of his mind for the past couple of years, and or trying to do something gimmicky. That was the thing about Metroid Prime 3. Going back to Metroid, the Wiimote was it was retrofitted, to pardon the pun. It was retrofitted to the Wiimote, and where
it's forced again, where it's just it's not supposed to be that way.
And the very beginning of the game, you're like, you have to press buttons on a keypad, and you have to point at the TV and hit the A button to have your finger to press a button. And it's like, no, just give me a gamepad and an analog stick, and I'm good to go. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And
exactly.
And that's why gamepads have virtually been identical for the past 20 years, is because we found out what works. That's why keyboards haven't changed.
They have gotten much more ergonomic.
Still QWERTY. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, you look at the original. Well, you look at the original NES controller compared with like the Xbox 360 controller. It's like, wow, I can actually hold this in my hands.
Yeah.
True, and I like personally, the Xbox controller. It just, to me, it's like you said, more ergonomical. It just feels better than the PlayStation one, if I dare say. I think that one. I think Xbox 360, Xbox One. That's the controller perfected.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. Although I do like the PS4 controller, but I do think the Xbox 360 controller is possibly one of the best controllers of all time.
Possibly one of the best consoles of all time. I mean, that really was just
it was great,
perfect. If the three red lights obviously wasn't great. But other than that, it was fantastic.
Well, I'm a sucker for the GameCube controller. The Nintendo really did hit the ball out of the park with that one, and they still. A few years ago, they released it again for when Smash for Wii U came out, and it just goes to testament as to how awesome that design is.
Yeah, I mean, it's an underrated console, underrated controller. I mean, a lot of people rag on the N64 controller, but I love that too. That and the GameCube, I mean, those really work well, especially for the games that they made.
What people had to do was just look at the manual and go, oh, I could hold the controller in different positions, the home position, or, depending on what game you have. And that really kind of simplified the whole thing. And I will admit, if you were to give me a choice of you could play this game with an N64 controller or a GameCube controller, I would, more than likely hit the GameCube controller. And they do have a thing now where there's a guy, his rafnettech.com. He has a GameCube to N64 controller adapter, so you can hook up your GameCube controller to an N64. If all your
very cool.
And I really want to get one of those for Beetle Adventure Racing, what was the point I was trying to make? Again, the GameCube controller is really awesome, but at the same time, I totally do. I agree. The Xbox One controller is phenomenal, and if the PlayStation 4 controller had the same button configuration as the Xbox One, where you have the analog stick at the top left and another analog stick at the bottom right, I would think that would be absolutely perfect. I don't like how the DualShock controllers have both analog sticks at the bottom. I think that's kind of idiotic, but
well, what I do like about the PlayStation controller, though, I mean, they've made it a little better on the Xbox One. On 360, it was terrible. Is the digipad. The digipad on the PlayStation's always been pretty much perfect, especially for racing. Like, you'd use the analog stick, but you'd kind of veer out of control, or at least I would. I always liked having that digipad there because you could actually get pretty precise in terms of how you controlled your car.
Yeah, and it's nice having the option because the D-pad was always it was good for racing, and then the analog stick was better for like RPGs and stuff where you're running around, stuff like that. Need a little more precise control.
But the PlayStation controller does have pressure sensitivity, right?
Yeah.
It's starting with the PS2.
Yeah, so having that, it kind of makes the D-pad an analog pad almost, but But yeah, no, having that function, the pressure sensitivity with the D-pad is a very good thing, because you could have that sensitivity, and that's what makes the PlayStation D-pad stand out from the other controllers is that functionality, which is probably why the DualShock design has survived this long, even though I think that the analog stick placement is very weird, but that's just my opinion. But
well, I have a theory, actually. I love the Xbox controller for pretty much everything except sports. I like Madden with the Xbox controller, but every other sport I prefer the PlayStation controller, and a lot of people even prefer PlayStation for Madden. But regardless, I think it may be the sports games that that are obviously so popular, because you're not just getting gamers, you're getting casual sports fans, and like for NBA, NFL, all that kind of stuff. I think they like the PlayStation controller the best, and since it works best for all those sports gamers, maybe that's why it's been so popular and over the years, and why they haven't changed it as much. But that's just my thinking.
Yeah, I'm not sure like what originally, maybe something to research. I'm not sure originally why they went with that setup, because that was from the original PlayStation, that having the analog sticks on the bottom like that, and then PS2 it just came out like that, whereas the PS1 you had to like get a special console. I guess it was the DualShock console that had that.
Well, yeah, because they started off, because obviously everyone knows the story now of the the falling out between Nintendo and Sony, how it was supposed to be a Super Nintendo add-on. I mean, if you look at the original PlayStation controller, it's pretty close, with the exception of like the longer grips, to a Super Nintendo controller. And then I guess they had to figure out, okay, where do we put these sticks? And they're like, okay, just put them on the bottom, because there was more room because of those extended handles.
Yeah,
I mean, like that's just my thinking. Again, I don't know for sure, but that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I guess because the DualShock console was not it came out after the original PlayStation. It was kind of an afterthought, I guess. And so probably they were like, well, we don't want to alienate our audience by completely changing the controller, and we're going to throw an analog stick up here and then another one down here, and so I guess they thought, well, I'll just stick them on the bottom and then keep everything else the same. People probably won't use them anyway, and then of course it became super popular.
I think you nailed it on the head. I think that's exactly what happened. They probably did it because of the N64. They probably, Mario 64. Yikes. Okay, how do we compete with this?
Exactly.
Put 2 analog sticks.
Yeah. 2 is better than 1.
Oh man.
Yeah, at least Xbox didn't come along and say, "Oh, let's put 3 analog sticks."
Yeah. Well, the Xbox too. If you look at it. And obviously a lot of people know this too, the Xbox was originally supposed to have support for Dreamcast games. Sega and Microsoft were negotiating that, and then eventually it fell through. But the Xbox controller is very similar to the Dreamcast. And the Dreamcast itself is very similar to the 3D Saturn controller that was made for Nights into Dreams.
Huh.
That's right. Yeah. I know. It's funny when you look at that Saturn controller and see the similarities with that and the Dreamcast controller.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a natural evolution,
Exactly.
Yeah.
It looks like we just hit the 145 mark.
Oh wow, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's our pilot episode, so we're running a little longer.
Well, guys, if you can believe it, as Max just said, I think we hit the hour and 45 mark. I mean, this has just been fantastic. The chemistry, I mean, we've really, I think for a pilot episode or for any episode, I think we've done a pretty good job. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, this has been great.
No, it's horrible. I'm sorry.
Well, 2 out of 3.
Get out of here!
But, this was fantastic. So, thank you very much, guys. Mr. Cameron Stark, Mr. Max Petrosky. I'm Jordan Freeman. This has been the first of what we hope to be, many Zoom platform podcasts. And stay tuned for more.
See ya.
Peace.